Hi, Heather. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. How are you?
We were
Good. Happy
you.
to see you.
How was your vacation?
Oh, it was good. Yeah,
Good.
it was good. Yeah, Idaho is beautiful. Oh my goodness, so beautiful. And we actually, though, the smoke from California, from way up in California and Oregon, is blowing east. So it was actually in the valley there, but we went up above it into the Alpine regions. So that was that was good. That was
Good.
really, yeah. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I just got back from work, so I was training a new employee and just got
Oh,
back home. So running a little bit, but
hmm.
otherwise okay.
Oh, well, thanks for making the effort and like cruising straight from work into this meeting. You know,
Yep.
it
Sorry
makes
to be a
it,
little bit late.
no, it's no problem. We were just catching up with Phyllis about what's going on in her world and a little bit about Phyllis is also on the board of Angel Aid, so just talking about a little bit about the what's happening and how the board is growing and evolving and
Okay.
flourishing. So
Nice.
that feels really good. Yeah. Well, is there anything you want to just say about your life at this moment, Heather? Like,
Um, well, we just finished up the swim season, which all three of my boys swim.
mm,
And I had been a little sad because my oldest one, who has the Ehlers-Danlos, the other two, their times get better as the years go on, but his times get worse as he physically gets worse. So it's kind of sad to have it. Data
mm,
points to show how much slower he is or harder it is for him to
mm,
do.
mm,
But towards the end of the season, he actually swam his best time on two different events. So that made me feel a little hopeful that with a lot of exercise and work, he can do a little bit more. And he just got back from Boy Scout camp, and it was the first time he was healthy enough to be allowed to go because he needed heart clearance. And so since he's had his heart surgery, he was
ah,
go. So my husband went with him and my middle son. They were all the way last week.
mm,
And I think it was hard for my oldest, and he said he wouldn't do it again because of the amount of walking. So, like everything, it's a little sad, but I also feel happy that he had the opportunity to do it because he's wanted to go since he joined Scouts in sixth grade, which is, 3 years ago, and he just wasn't healthy enough to ever go. So I feel like being healthy enough and getting to have the experience was good for him, even
mm,
though he realizes it's too hard for him to do in the future.
mm. Well, it's amazing that he had the experience. He got to go, right? And he realized he, had some limitations around the walking, but just that he got to go, you know.
Exactly. And it was, 7 days. That's a long time to be out sleeping in the woods for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of challenges for him, but I was impressed with how he made it through them and he figured
Mm,
out ways to make it work. And, I felt happy that he found a way to be successful in an environment that wasn't built for his physical conditions. And
yeah.
that he also recognizes enough of what his own limitations are to decide whether or not that makes sense for him to do again.
Mm. Sounds like a very yeah, an empowered person, which speaks to you all as parents and him as a soul and a being, that he has the wherewithal to do that, and also the discernment, which more and more it feels like discernment is being handed out in like droplets to humans. And that we really have to develop it ourselves. So it sounds like he got like he got a spoonful of discernment in his mixture.
I've been impressed with him this summer with that because he actually did two other weekend camping trips, one with his scout troop and one with his youth group, where we didn't go. And that was the first time that my husband didn't go with him. I mean, he has so many health needs, so my husband always went if he was going to go. But because he physically is allowed to go without a helper, because his heart is working,
Mm.
I got to pop up, hold on here. He wanted to try by himself. And so we did it. And the the first one he went camping with scouts, him and his younger brother, who's going into 6th grade. And I didn't worry about my youngest one, even though it was his first camping trip, but I did worry about the older one the whole time. And, he came back and he did well. And then he went with his youth group. And I was really impressed there because when he told me about it, he told me how much fun he had and how great it was. And then when he broke it down, he couldn't do half the activities, but his attitude was still, it was really good. And not that I missed out, but I found something else to do. So he was like, well, they were playing a game in the sun where they were running around. I can't do that. But I took a walk with one of the leaders and we went to the lake and sat there and talked and we had a really nice conversation. So instead of coming back to me and saying, it's terrible because I can't do it, he came back to me and said, I had a great time. And he made all those decisions for himself, whether or not he could do it. When he was little, we used to tell the leaders, he can't do this, he can't do that, let him do it.
He has this limitation.
He's 14. So I say, well, you decide, your body, you say, can I do it or can I not do it? And I was surprised at the number of things he chose not to do that I can think his younger, more immature self would have said, well, I want to do it and done it anyway. But he chose not to because he realized that it could hurt him. So they did something as simple as like a musical chairs type game that he did not do because he's like, well, if they crash into me, it will hurt me. And he didn't have that type of discernment a couple of years ago. He would push the limits. He wanted to do everything that he could try to do, even if there was a physical consequence. And now I see him making better choices and being happy about it. He could tell me
that's amazing.
He missed this and he missed that, but he played chess with so-and-so and he took this walk,
beautiful
alternate activities and was still happy. He wasn't in that place of I'm missing out. He was, I'm making different choices and I'm okay with them.
That's amazing.
And that's like a big deal for us.
Heather, do you find that you hear him saying words that you've said? You've given him the words to use. And that's such a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. For us, I actually had a friend whose child also has Ehlers-Danlos, and her belief was you should never tell the child what their disability is. You shouldn't talk about it. You'll ruin his childhood if you tell him he has something wrong with him. Well, whether I tell him or not, my son has something wrong with him. So I don't see how hiding it could be beneficial. And so we were open from the very beginning. He was 9 when he got the diagnosis, and we explained it at a 9-year-old level. As he gets older, I explain it, at a higher level. And so I see him really understanding this is what I have, and this is what could happen if I do this, and this is the consequences. And he advocates for himself well because I have advocated for him his whole life. When there were times when organizations tried to kick him out because of his needs, I'd be like, no, he's got a disability, and with the American Disabilities Act, you have to make accommodations for him. And he's very good now about saying, well, you need to help me find another way to do this, as opposed to just walking away and saying, well, I can't do it.
Well, that's also, as Phyllis pointed to, that's because you've modeled that and, instilled that in him, that he has that right. He has his basic human rights. And something that really strikes me and is a great segue to our theme, which is gratitude, which is appreciation, is that what I get is that he's not focusing on the things that he can't do. He's grateful, even though he didn't maybe say, oh, I'm so grateful I got to hang out with the counselor and have that conversation. That's what he focused on. He focused on the things that he enjoyed and that he was able to do, which shows that he's grateful and he's appreciating what's being given, which acts also as a bridge to our theme here, Rare Mothers in Relationship, is that gratitude is one of the foundational pieces that makes a relationship work. Without being grateful for your partner, your husband, your person, you're up a creek, because you're going to find a million flaws. You're going to be infinitely disappointed. There are things that they're going to do. First of all, they're human. Second of all, in all of our cases here, they're male. So it's a very different creature than being a woman. And so that in and of itself is a little bit tricky. A friend of mine said, yeah, all men are apes. I mean, we are all apes, but there's just a certain simplicity. It's just a very different kind of creature, right? Than being a woman. And so in a rare uh, relationship, a relationship where you have a rare child, it's even more important to have this, your relationship, your marriage, your partnership be solid. And it's like, this is how you bring solidity to it. This is how you make a stable ground, is by being really grateful, which is a practice. As we know, gratitude is a practice, appreciation is a practice. And to practice it with somebody, and also, you're living with somebody in the same house usually, and they're in your hair and you're in their hair. And we've been in this pandemic, which means everybody's been even more in close quarters. And maybe you have a home that has enough room, or maybe your home is a little on the smaller side. So whatever it is, you're in each other's space a lot. So suffice to say that gratitude is our focus for today. I'm going to read from this wonderful book, Consolations, the Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words by David White, who is a mystic and a master, poet and speaker, and wise man, very wise. I'm going to read a little, and then we will meditate. And then we'll talk about how appreciation works in your relationship, and ways to bring it more into the fore. You can make yourself comfortable, eyes open or closed. I suggest closed. You're welcome to lie down or sit up, whatever is good for you. I'm just getting my timer up here. Okay. So read a little bit from David White. Gratitude is not a passive response to something we have been given. Gratitude arises from paying attention, from being awake in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. Gratitude is not necessarily something that is shown after the event. It is the deep, a priori state of attention that shows we understand and are equal to the gifted nature of life. Gratitude is the understanding that many millions of things come together and live together and mesh together and breathe together in order for us to take even one more breath of air. That the underlying gift of life and incarnation as a living, participating human being is a privilege. That we are miraculously part of something rather than nothing. Even if that something is temporarily pain or despair, we inhabit a living world with real faces, real voices, laughter, the color blue, the green of the fields, the freshness of a cold wind, or the tawny hue of a winter landscape. To see the full miraculous essentiality of the color blue is to be grateful with no necessity for a word of thanks. To see fully the beauty of a daughter's face is to be fully grateful without having to seek a God to thank him. To sit among friends and strangers, hearing many voices, strange opinions, to intuit inner lives beneath surface lives, to inhabit many worlds at once in this world. To be a someone again amongst all other someones, and therefore to make a conversation without saying a word is to deepen our sense of presence and therefore our natural sense of thankfulness that everything happens both with us and without us. That we are participants and witness all at once. Thankfulness finds its full measure in generosity of presence, both through participation and witness. We sit at the table as part of every other person's world while making our own world without will or effort. This is what is extraordinary and gifted. This is the essence of gratefulness. Seeing to the heart of privilege. Thanksgiving happens when our sense of presence meets all other presences. Being unappreciative might mean we're simply not paying attention. Thank you to David White for his exquisite writing and words of wisdom. So let's meditate on that. So just closing the eyes, letting them rest, and letting the echo of David White's words resound in the space that we are sharing and in the space of your own heart. Taking some nice, easy breath. And to begin, let's offer some gratitude to ourselves. Thanking yourself first and foremost for making the time to be here, for carving out a window in the fullness of your life to come and drink deeply of your own heart and of the sweetness of the hearts of others. So letting yourself receive the fullness that is here now amidst everything else. Just taking this time for yourself is miraculous. So let your body, your beautiful body, sink in to wherever you're sitting or resting. Allowing for the space of silence to wrap its warm arms around you. And from time to time, take a really nice deep breath and be grateful. Let yourself sink into gratitude. Because right now, you as a rare mother are growing your capacity to experience gratitude. Gratitude is a muscle, and it wants to be exercised. And the more you can practice gratitude with yourself, the easier it is to practice it in your relationship with your partner. To really be present to offer your noticing to the things that they are doing, ways that they are being, that are in fact generous and kind. Caring. Just allowing yourself to see and sense as the witness the ways that your partner or husband is supporting you, is loving you, holding you. They might be big or little. It can be something as subtle as a smile, or perhaps a grand gesture. Let's see what comes. And as you do, continue to receive yourself. Gratitude for yourself. So let's just breathe together into this field of gratitude until the bell sounds. Let yourself, your beautiful self, your tender self, be nourished. And then I invite you to place a hand on your heart, feeling its weight and its temperature, and receiving how you are here with yourself and with our wonderful community. Just give thanks. And then very slowly and gently bringing yourself back. And then let's take about 5 minutes to just reflect, to journal, to see what came up. And maybe what are you grateful for about your partner? What is it that you appreciate about them? It'd be so useful to make note of this. And we'll come back together. and we'll share. talking a little bit to finish up. I'm curious. What touched you? What came up? Was it easy to find things about your partner, your husband, that you appreciate? Or did you have to dig around? What's your experience? What is your experience?
I think that gratitude in general, I do a good job at because I'm conscious of using that as a strategy to deal with Matthew's situation. So since his diagnosis, 5 years ago, I've kept a gratitude journal. I'm very focused on that. I did the Science of Happiness course during COVID when we were locked down because Yale offered it for free. And so she talked a lot about just stopping to notice and be grateful for the world around you, which kind of went along with the reading that you did, like, just standing outside and really appreciating the beauty of the day or the simple moments, that it didn't need to be something big. And also to be aware that you normalize the things that you have. But if you look back 10 years ago, those were things that you really desired and were so excited to get, but we don't keep that excitement every day, right? When I first bought this house, moving up to a bigger house was a really big deal because we'd outgrown our other one. I don't sit around every day going, I'm so grateful for my house, but I should be, because I felt that gratitude when we were able to get it. So being more cognizant of those things. I do know that I need to be better in terms of my partner. And I've thought this before, just because I work and I have several people who work with me as assistants in my classroom, and I'm very cognizant of being very kind and patient and polite and grateful for what they do, even though it's their job. Thank you so much for what you did with that student. That was really helpful.
Yes.
I talk like that to them. I talk like that to my students and my children, but I don't talk like that to my husband, even though my husband does a lot of things. So I have been trying to work on that, just being more grateful and saying thank you to him. And I do think overall he does do a lot. I was always a feminist, so that was a big thing for me, having a husband who would help with housework and who would help with the children and all of those things. And he is very good at that. My husband cooks dinner every single day because he likes cooking more than me. So that's a really big deal. And it's one of those things you can take for granted. We've been together 20 years. So of course he's cooking dinner tonight. He's always cooking dinner. But comparatively, most women end up cooking the meal every night, I find. And so it's a really big deal that not only does he cook, but he's an excellent cook. His grandfather was a professional chef. So he's like a really good cook.
Wow.
And that's something to be grateful for every day, that we tend to take for granted that he does it. So I think that there are a lot of those things that, to me, go back to that Signs of Happiness course, that just because he does them all the time, or I expect that because that's where our relationship is, doesn't mean it's not something to appreciate and be grateful for, and to try to let him know that I'm grateful for it. Because, when we were first dating and he cooked a meal, it would be like, that's amazing, thank you so much. But on a regular Monday night, I'm not like, that's amazing, thank you so much.
So what's in the way? What gets in the way of being like, wow, it's Monday, you made this amazing eggplant parmesan, it's phenomenal, and I love this salad too. Like what gets in the way, or what are the, like, where it's kind of like, where do we get complacent? Where do we get a little lazy, or a little, like we take stuff for granted? And so how do you know you're getting into that way of being, and what will it take for you to bridge the enthusiasm with which you thank your assistants in your classroom or your students, what's the bridge to being like, wow, honey, thank you, because really those of us who cook food every day or make someone's coffee every day or what the everyday things, those are exactly it. Those are where we fall asleep. It's like, oh, I'm asleep. You do this for me every day. Of course you're going to do this. But guess what? You are blessed that he does this cooking every day, or that someone makes you coffee every day, or someone makes the bed every day, or whatever they do, we do for each other. And to stay awake in, wow, I think that's what you're pointing to is like, how do I stay awake? So how do you stay awake? How do you stay present?
I think it's a mindfulness thing. You have to be aware of it. And I think the trap is the comfort level between home and work. When I'm at work, I'm in my teacher work persona. I'm talking to autistic 3-year-olds in a very different way than I'm talking to you currently, because I need to. And I'm talking to them in a very praise-filled way. And I'm making sure that the adults want to continue to work with me, because it's not a permanent situation. They're not married to that job. They can ask to be transferred out of the room, right? So you want to very much make sure that they are content with what they're doing and they feel appreciated even when the job is hard, right? Autistic kids, that can be a hard thing to do. So I want them to feel appreciated. But that's where I started to recognize that I put all this effort into that. When you get home, then I can turn that off, right? Like I can be a little more relaxed. I don't have to be so on like I am at work. But in part of that turning that off, you start to take things for granted. Because when I come home to rest, my husband will most assuredly be making dinner and I can concentrate on helping the kids. But having that free time to spend with my kids is a gift he gives me every day, because he cooks my meal for me.
So then feel that just even right now, just feel that that's a gift he gives you. When you come home, you get to spend time with your kids because he's making food for y'all. And there's going to be good food on the table that will nourish you, that will, stabilize everybody's blood sugar and all of that. Right. So then just feel all that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he gives me that. Right.
So I've been trying to be better about expressing that gratitude, saying, oh, that was delicious. Thank you so much for that. Or, he handles a lot of the insurance problems with my son. So, thank you for calling them and trying to get that worked out.
Yeah, because that can be a bear to talk to the insurance people.
Right. Then he'll be on hold for an hour, and that's a big deal to sit there, and then nothing gets resolved, and you have to do it again. I mean,
so when he's sitting on hold for an hour, do you just let him sit there on hold, or like what would it be like if while he's sitting on hold for an hour, which PS is not that fun, right? You go up to him and you just like rub his shoulders a little bit, or just pat him on the back, give him a little kiss on the cheek, and just be like, thank you for doing that. Please, like it's that going, like having the recognition, oh, you're doing something for me right now.
Right.
Like my partner fixes all the computer stuff. I'm just like, honey, this isn't synced up with that. Can you please? And he'll just do it. And this is the kind of stuff that makes me just, I get all grumbly if I have to deal with that stuff, and he'll just do it. And then all of a sudden it's working. And then if it doesn't work again, which often happens with computers, he'll fix it again.
Right.
So that recognition. So I think you're pointing to the mindfulness to slow down enough to realize, oh, he's on the phone with the insurance, dealing with it. And like you said, he's going to wait. He's going to talk to somebody. And then he's probably going to have to make another call, because that's sort of the system.
That's how it goes.
Right. The system's broken. So it ends up consuming a lot of energy.
Right.
So yeah, those are great examples. So what's going to be, what's your Dharma bell? What's going to remind you to actually, like, because you come home from work, or you make a transition, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm not on. Well, I'm on in a different way because I'm on with my kids, right? And here's this other person who's he's kind of holding the ground. He's holding the fort, so that I can relax a little. And how do I relax enough into myself and still recognize that someone's doing something that maybe there's like a reframe in there, that it's not like I'm on when
Mhm.
I'm in the intention, that the intention and practice and expression of gratitude and appreciation is different from being on, that it's
Right.
actually a nourishing practice, because it is, right? Because
Mhm.
you get it out, and then he smiles, and then all those smiles and love and goodness goes into the food, and then you eat the food, and then you feel good because you're receiving the love and goodness that he put into the food.
Right. Yeah, and it's just, as I said, not taking him for granted, because as I said, like the workers, they could leave. Well, we're married, so he's probably not going to leave, but I mean, he could. And so just being really cognizant of treating him with the same level of respect that I treat these women who work with me that are not nearly as close to me as my husband is. They're
Yeah.
somewhere between acquaintances and friends, depending how long I've known them, but I talk a lot nicer to them sometimes than I talk to my husband. And so I've been aware of that the past year or so, and trying to make sure that he knows that I appreciate the things that, especially the things that he's willing to do that
That you
I
don't like to do.
really don't like to do. Like, I don't like driving, especially in the city, but my husband just made an appointment in New York City for my son because that's where the best cardiologist is for him. And he's the one who's going to drive up there. And that's a 2.5 hour drive into New York City. I
That's
really
what you
would not want
call
to do
a
that.
schlep, a
Right.
schlep in traffic.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
so that willingness to do this thing that not only takes the burden off of me, but benefits our son, to go out of his way to help my son when he could say, take him to the cardiologist around the corner,
Mhm.
that those are the things that I need to be grateful for.
Wonderful. Phyllis, you're on mute, honey.
Can't hear you.
Phyllis, unmute, because I want to hear what you have to say. That's awesome, Heather. Thank you.
Good for you, Heather, because you pointed out it takes mindfulness. What Padma was saying to me reminded me of what Padma said about gratitude as a muscle.
Mhm.
There's one muscle that you use for school for your assistants, and you have another muscle that you use for your husband. And I think that you already use it. You just recognize you need to develop that muscle more.
Right.
And the reason it took me back is because when I had my children at home, in those days, my church was, we met Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings. Monday night was family home evening, and Wednesday night was social. So I had constant exposure and reminders. And thank goodness I did, because I was feeling very resentful at the time, because I grew up in a generation when the men got everything. And we were part of the feminist change.
Mhm.
But the fact is, it didn't change fast enough. My husband owned everything, and I resented that. And I resented that I had to stay home and take care of the children all the time, and that he got to work and then he got to go off on the weekends to be with his friends.
Right.
Gratitude is what got me through all that. And my church reminded me of this, to be grateful and appreciative. Mindfulness meditation, I did TM, so I reminded myself it's just a different muscle.
Mhm.
And that's practicing that gratitude is what helped me to appreciate the things that he did do, because he was not a cook, he was not a nursemaid, but he was a wonderful father. On our Monday night meetings, when we would do it as a family, they had an exercise. What is it that really brings you happiness? And when it came his turn to say, he said, when I come home at night and I walk through the door and I have all these boys, these little babies, just happy to see me, come running to me. And they were so happy to see me. And I was grateful that he was such a good, loving father and a good, loving husband. even though he didn't do all of the things now I would love for him to do, but back then I just took it for granted that I had to do them,
Mhm.
you know.
Right.
But I was reminded to be grateful to him for,
Mhm.
for the things that he did do, and it's one of my it's one of the things that I do now is feel gratitude for, like you said, the beautiful home that he built with his own hands.
Wow.
And there's, I'm so glad that we have this. I don't have, with, especially with COVID, we don't get together as a church as much. We have
Mhm.
Zooms, but
Right.
I would like to, that's why I was telling Padma and Paige earlier, I missed last week. I had an emergency and I can't remember what it was, but I was so grateful to be able to come today
Right.
because here it is. This is an exercise of my muscle of gratitude by hearing these messages, and I'm just very grateful for this class, yeah, this workshop. And Heather, every time you come, you say things that really lift my soul and my spirit.
Mm.
So I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Paige
Oh,
too. Yeah.
thank you, Phyllis.
I did like
Yeah.
the idea of gratitude as a muscle because I say that to my son all the time about resilience. I tell him resilience is a muscle. You get more when you exercise it as he tries to deal with difficult things. And
Yeah.
so I always like that analogy. And I like to think now that gratitude is a muscle.
Yeah.
Resilience is a muscle.
Resilience is a muscle, gratitude is a muscle. And it is this muscle. And I love also this idea of when you come home, or just sort of how we treat the people that are actually even more on the periphery of our lives versus right in our inner sphere, right? This is our
Right.
immediate family. These are our people. And to not take them for granted that they're not going to leave, because even if you're married, they could leave.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that's why I put this quote: people go where they wanted, where they're wanted, and stay where they're valued. And you have to realize you're valued, because there could be one day when your husband's like, you know what, I'm done cooking.
Right.
I've
Right.
been cooking for 25 years. I'm done cooking. And you're like, what? You're not cooking? How are we going to eat? He's like, you'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's like,
Right.
and I mean, so I think that the things that we do, that we just do as a matter of course. It's like, oh, this is our habit. Our habit is he cooks dinner. My habit here is, I make coffee for my partner, even though I don't drink it. Like
Right.
I drink tea. He drinks coffee, but I make him the coffee, pretty much every single day. So to be appreciated for the things that we're doing makes us want to keep doing it.
Right.
It gives us energy, right? So the one aspect, so in gratitude, there's the offering and coming from a true, like, stopping and feeling, oh, this is awesome. He's cooking such a nice meal,
Right.
or he's taking out the trash, or my partner takes out the compost. It's one of his chores. And it's kind of, it's the compost. It's a little
Right.
smelly, whatever, but he takes it out and he does it. And I'm thankful that he does it. So to slow down, to be the witness, to witness what's going on, right? That's the mindfulness. Oh, what's actually happening here? Or even the fact that you're living in a house, Phyllis, that your husband built. You're living in a bigger house, Heather, that obviously is because you have two incomes, I'm guessing,
Right.
or money from wherever, and I'm living in this house because I'm with my partner. I couldn't live in this house by myself. It wouldn't happen. I mean, it could happen, but it didn't happen that way.
Right. Right.
So slowing down enough to realize what's being given, to receive it, and then from taking that time to receive it and let it in, to then let it fill you up so much that you have no choice except to say, thank you. This is great. I am so happy. that I am living here. I am so happy that we are eating this beautiful food. I'm so thankful, and so it's really, I mean, that's where it's a muscle. There's sort of many facets to
Right.
building the muscle. It's not just because if we just say, oh, thanks for dinner,
Yeah.
it's a little empty, and yet, it's a gesture. That's nice. But when it comes from having really received that this nice dinner, this nice, delicious feast is on the table every night,
Right.
it's great. I mean, I cook around here. I'm very, very simple cook. But when my partner says, oh, I cook the vegetables to perfection, he says, look at this, like he walks up for lunch, look at this wonderful meal, and it's just very simple, avocado toast, eggs, salad, whatever it is. And he loves it. And he
Right.
looks and says, oh, look at this. And then I feel, oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad I just took the time and put the energy and made it beautiful. And
Right.
so it's a cycle. It's a cycle that is nourishing. And it's also something that we imprint on our children.
Mhm.
Because children, I don't think, are necessarily grateful by nature, especially when they hit the teenage years.
And I'm always telling them, change your attitude to gratitude when they start complaining
Yes,
about things to me.
exactly. It's like, you got it good, even in the hard places.
That's what I tell them. They don't
Mhm.
always believe me, but I do tell them that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a good reminder of all my husband does because he was away all last week. And the other
Oh,
two boys were
yeah.
away at scout camp. So it was just me and the youngest one. And in some ways, it's easier because I only had my youngest one and his health needs don't compare to what his older brothers are.
But you still
But
got to cook them dinner.
those things that I normally do, but also all the things he normally does, my husband normally does, and now they were all on me. And it really gave me this insight into how much what he does takes a burden off of me
Yes.
because he's willing to do it. And not big things. He's the one who always feeds the dog and the cats. That's not a big deal thing. But when I added it on to everything else that I normally do, which was all the laundry and all the running around and all the errands, and then I also had to make the food and I also had to feed the animals and I had to clean the whole kitchen, I was like, I'm exhausted. This is too much for one person.
Exactly.
So it was like that
Exactly.
moment of like, he's doing these small things and I'm never like, wow, thank you, you fed a cat. But
Exactly.
doing that really
That's a
does
great
take some of the
realization.
burden off of me.
Exactly. So now when he feeds the cat, you can say, thanks for doing that, honey. That's really helpful. Because
Right.
it's exactly that, because those things all add up.
Right.
And
They're
then
all
what you
little.
just described is the life of a single parent.
Exactly.
So you're grateful that you're not a single parent.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a sister who's 20 years younger than me, and my parents got divorced when she was little. So my mom raised her as a single mom, and she was divorced since she was 6. And I said to my mom, like, this is exhausting because there's no downtime. You're the only one who can answer every request. My youngest is 8.
Exactly.
So, anything he needed. Can you help me get this? I can't reach the cup. Can oh, I don't know how to play this game. Can you fix it? Like all of
Exactly.
that, every request is only
Yes.
me. And I was
Mhm.
like, wow, it gave me just an insight into my mom, how it was for her,
Yes.
in her, I guess she was like 50 when she left my dad and had this baby that
Exactly.
she had to take care of.
Exactly. And it gives you compassion for mothers, and I would say even especially rare mothers who are raising children alone. And even if, or even when, as in your case, Phyllis, your husband was out working and doing his things, still income was coming in from somewhere. And so that is a big help. So there are so many ways. So the practice I'd like to leave you with is to really up the ante, be very intentional. And what's a good number? Let's make a number of times that we will appreciate our husbands or partners each day. What's a good number for you? What's real? What do you think you can do? Should we say like 3? Should we say 5? 3? Should we start with 3? Any more than 3 is bonus. What intend for 3 times a day that you actively pause, receive, really feel filled up with what they're doing, how they're being, And then, yeah. So that'll be the practice 3 times a day. Express your gratitude for anything. Ways of being, things they're doing, all of that. Well, great. I'm so glad we had this time. So
Yes.
rich and lovely.
I'll be
So-
on vacation next week, so
Oh,
I
you'll
won't
be
see
on
you
vacation.
then.
Okay. Well, I will be actually on the East Coast next week.
Oh, nice.
And
Where are you
I'll-
going?
New York.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So I'll probably be in, I don't know where I'll be, but I'll show up for the meeting on New York time. We'll miss you, Heather, and we'll see you the following week then. Where
All
are you
right.
guys going on vacation?
The Outer Banks in
Hmm,
North Carolina. Yeah.
cool. That'll be nice. Beautiful.
We're looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you,
Thank
Paige,
you.
for being there in the background.
I'm
All
going,
right.
I'm going to be at the 5 o'clock carriers meeting today, but I'm going to call at least one person about meeting with us next Tuesday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. That's awesome. And you know what? If it feels right at the carriers meeting, just mention this workshop. Just drop it in. You don't have to talk about it a lot, but you could just say, I was at the Rare Mothers in Relationship workshop
I know
today,
what
and
to say.
you know what to say.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All right,
much.